everybody. I hope you're having a good day today. You know, for some people, this is a holiday and they have the day off and they're going to do something probably that is out of their normal routine. But anyway, whatever you want to do, whatever you can do, we're still going to be here. All right. The title of the lesson is How God Punishes People. You know, in the Bible, God is described as using other nations to punish his own people of Israel. In the Old Testament, we'll start there in the Old Testament. See, the Assyrians overcame Israel, even though the Assyrians were a wicked and evil people. And the Babylonians overcame Judah and Jerusalem, even though they were also a wicked people. And so, speaking through his prophets, God explained that he used these wicked armies to bring punishment to his disobedient children. See, if they weren't disobedient, he would not have used them. And that's something that we learn. And of course, there's other ways that God punishes his people. And sometimes he punishes them as a nation. Sometimes he punishes them as individuals. Now, this was brought forth in the writings of Moses. You can read either Leviticus 26 or Deuteronomy 28, which basically read identical to each other. And we read that God will punish disobedience. If you turn your back on God, you stop serving God, he's going to send punishment upon you. See, the first measure is that basically God will just withhold the blessings that he promised for faithfulness. And we see that in the first few verses there of Deuteronomy 28, Leviticus 26. And then, of course, the final measure that God will withhold, that's the first measure. Then the subsequent punishment will get more severe as it goes along. I mean, the famine, the drought, the locust, and things like that make life difficult and hard. They're all going to be there. And then finally, he's going to notice in Deuteronomy 28 and 20, it reads, "The Lord will send upon you curses, confusion, and rebuke in all you undertake to do, until you are destroyed and until you perish quickly on account of the evil of your deeds, because you have forsaken me." I mean, that's some pretty heavy-duty language if you think about it. And it's because these people turn their back on God. And of course, we read throughout the Old Testament the purpose of God's punishment, and even into the New Testament, the purpose of God's punishment and chastisement is for the purpose of causing his people to repent and return to serving and worshiping him. See, we see this throughout the Old Testament, instances where people were struck dead or suffered terrible deaths because they offended God. All right, now, is today any different? God is being offended today, when you think about it. And of course, and people are not being struck down dead. So why the difference? Well, because we're now under a different system of law, a different system which we call grace. And while grace does not cover sin by itself, no, grace doesn't do that. Grace does not overlook sin. Grace does not cover sin by itself. It needs something to go with it. So if a person continues in sin, grace cannot and will not help them. The person has to stop the sin in their life in order for grace to be effective. And that's something a lot of people don't understand about grace. They think grace does everything, but no, it only does. I mean, it's in two parts. There's God's part, what God provides, and then there's the part which man provides, which is obedience. And so God provides his grace. But if someone is intent on committing sin, if they want to continue in sin and they don't want to return to God, grace is not going to help them one bit. See, under the New Testament system of grace and what we call Christianity, the punishment of God is reserved for the end of our lives. I mean, yes, we do things, and if we can get ourselves straightened up before we die, then we have a much better chance. But if we don't straighten ourselves up, then there is a reserved judgment for us. And Paul told those on Mars Hill that the God has appointed a day in which he will judge the world in righteousness through the one whom he furnished as proof by raising him from the dead. So through Jesus Christ, we are going to be judged. And so those who have not obeyed the Son, those who have not believed in God or even known God, they're going to be suffering eternal punishment. And so the hell is people being separated from God into everlasting darkness and pain and weeping and all the other horrible descriptions of that place. That's the punishment reserved for those who do not serve the Lord and do not obey the Christ. And of course, the worst thing about it is there will be no God there. God will not be there. And there will be no hope that you can call out to God and say, save me. No, that will not be there. That will not be available in hell. So that's why we suggest get right with the Lord now. Don't wait until it's too late. So we see that while a few do make the choice to follow the straight and narrow path that Jesus talked about there in Matthew 7, 13 and 14, we must be aware that many who claim to be on the good path are actually not. We talked about them yesterday when we talked about phony Christians. Now remember Matthew 7:21, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. So, God desires that we make the right choices and serve him diligently. He offers a reward that is so amazing that we really cannot put it into human language just how amazing heaven will be. I mean, we have a few word pictures. We have a description there in Revelation chapter 21 about a beautiful place. I mean, it's going to be like a Garden of Eden just about, and it's going to be wonderful. But those are just word pictures. Those really do not describe how great heaven is going to be. And so heaven is promised to those who obey God and keep his commandments. And so those who do not keep his commandments, there's going to be eternal punishment for them that they are going to have to suffer. So we can say this, we can be thankful that God does not strike people down today who fail to do his will. Otherwise, there'd be nobody alive today. So some people blatantly and willfully sin against God, and yeah, we probably say, well, God will get them for that. Well, that's true. They have their day coming. There is a day coming which God will judge the world in righteousness. That means everybody in the world. So it is a day that all mankind has been warned about, and that is how God punishes people today. And we must also remember that God does deal with the affairs of men. We cannot forget that. He is involved in that, and he does play a role in who is in government, who is in charge of governments. He even does that today. And how he operates, I can't tell you because I don't think anybody knows. But there's ways that we can look at, and we can see what's going on in our country here in America, and we can see that this country is suffering. And it's suffering because of the choices it has made. It has made choices to kick God out of our schools, kick God out of government, kick God out of our society. And we're reaping the rewards. We have all the evil that's taking place. And then, of course, all the corruption that's in government. All the way from the top all the way to the bottom, there's corruption taking place. And somehow people think, well, we can't do anything about that. And so, I mean, what's going on in this country is the beginning of our punishment from God. I mean, who knows? Who knows if God hasn't gotten so disgusted, he said, okay, it's time for America to cease to exist. And maybe the history books will be kind to it, and maybe it won't. And we do know that our democratic society or republic that we live in, no country has survived more than 250 years, and we're already up there about 290 years, but yet we are suffering. We know that. We are suffering. So let's consider all these thoughts. And yeah, our time is running out for our country. And the only way it's going to stay safe is if we can get more people to turn back to God and start serving God and following God's rules. So that's how we're going to do it. All right, that's our lesson for today. Simple lesson, but it's one thing that we have to be aware of. And you have to be aware of that those around you who are not serving God, they're heading for this punishment. And God has placed upon you a responsibility to warn them about their eternal consequences of the choices they make. So let's do something for God today. Let's help someone see the truth, see heaven, and see a good example. I mean, that's the first step we need to take. We need to set a good example for everybody. Then once we set a good example, then they're willing to listen to us. But if we're living like the world and try and tell people they need to serve God, they're just going to look at you like you're all sorts of funny or something. And so keep those things in mind. That's our lesson for today. Enjoy the rest of your day and be safe out there. And Lord willing, we'll be back here again tomorrow with another lesson. Bye-bye for now.